Here we go on Swiss Family Chapter 11. Now, you remember when we ended the last one, the giant snake had a hold of the donkey. So let's find out what's going to happen. They call this chapter The Mirage in the Desert. Grizzle soon saw the terrible danger that awaited him in the marsh. He immediately began to run the other way, braying with all his might. But neither his cries nor his legs could save him from the deadly enemy. In a flash, the boa constrictor reached out and crushed him in its monstrous rings. "Oh, how terrible!" Elizabeth wailed, turning away from the window. "What can we do to save poor Grizzle?" "Quick, father!" yelled Fritz. "Shoot the snake!" "I can't," I replied, "for if I fail to kill him and merely wound him, he might attack us. It's a chance I simply cannot take." So there it is. That gives you an idea how big that snake is when you can see how big it is on that donkey, the poor donkey. Just then we heard Grizzle's bones cracking as the monster swallowed him in one big gulp. To our amazement, the boa completely lost its strength and slumped down in a stupor. "At last," I said, "he is in our power. Fire, Fritz." Fritz and I fired together, but we didn't kill the serpent. Instead, it raised his head and glared at us with fire in its eyes. We moved closer, aimed at its eyes, and fired again. A slight quiver ran through the boa's body, and it soon lay dead upon the sand before us, stretched out like the mast of a ship. "Thank God that is over," Elizabeth said, heaving a sigh of relief. "We have nothing more to fear from him now," I declared, putting my arm around my trembling wife. "But he may have a mate hiding nearby, or a nest of babies," said Frances. So there's a sad picture. There's the snake, and it's all fat because it's got poor Grizzle inside of it. "Then we'd really be in trouble," moaned Fritz. "I think we should check out those possibilities," I said. "We will search through the marsh first, then spread out and cover the region around Falcon's Nest." Trooping through the marsh, we easily recognized traces of the boa, for the rushes were bent down and broken where it had passed through, and there were deep spiral impressions in the wet ground where it had rested its enormous rings. But we found no signs of a companion or a nest of eggs or little ones. At the border of the swamp, Ernest suddenly cried out, "Come quickly, I have just killed a young boa." "That's not a boa, Ernest," I told him as I reached his side. "It's an eel." It was indeed a superb eel, approximately 4 feet long. Ernest had walked straight up to it, hit it several times on the head with his gun with as much courage as it would have taken to kill a dozen boa constrictors. So there he is with the eel. People eat eel. That would probably be good. Actually, people eat snake too, but I don't think I'd want to eat that giant boa constrictor. "We'll take it home with us," I said. "It'll make a fine meal another day." As we circled the countryside around our treehouse, we saw fewer and fewer traces of the serpent. Satisfied that we were safe now, we returned to Felsenheim. Before we had gone off, Fritz had left a pig roasting in a trench, which he had filled with red-hot pebbles and covered with a layer of bark and earth. Now, as he pulled back the covering, the most delicious odor drifted up through the air. "Ooh, something smells good," exclaimed Frances. "This is simply marvelous," raved Elizabeth as she took her first bite of the stuffing of potatoes and roots that Fritz had made. "Yes, my boy," I added, "you are quite a cook. Congratulations on a job well done. What are we going to do now, Papa?" There's Fritz uncovering the pit with the pig. I've seen people do that. I've never, well, actually, I have had one once, wild boar, and it was pretty tasty. I bet it just smells delicious. That'll make them feel a little better after their donkey got killed. After all, we are well settled in the grotto, and the boa's reign of terror is over. The father says, "It has occurred to me that we should make another trip to the interior of the island." Do you realize that we have lived here 3 years without exploring everything? 3 years, the boys cried in amazement. That's hard to believe, quipped Elizabeth. When do you want to leave for the trip? Would tomorrow morning suit everyone? The family was agreeable, and as soon as the sun came peeking over the horizon at dawn, we set out for the land beyond the rocks. After 2 hours, I gave the signal to halt. We were high on a hill overlooking a wide sandy plain and surrounded on all sides by a pine forest. We investigated the woods, but discovered nothing except 2 wild cats who fled into the trees before we could aim our guns at them. We set up camp and left Elizabeth and Frances there while the rest of us forged across the plain. There's the wildcats running away. I don't know why they would shoot them. They're probably not very good eating. I've never heard anybody say that any kind of cat was delicious. This is where we saw the buffaloes the time before, Jack pointed out. My, it's hot, complained Ernest. May I have a drink of water, Father? But the water in the gourds had become so warm we were unable to drink it. The sun beat down on our heads and the sand burned our feet. We were in a vast desert that stretched in all directions as far as the eye could see. After several hours, we arrived at a huge rock that afforded us some refuge from the sun. Exhausted, we leaned against the side, sucking on some bits of sugar cane that I had brought along for just such an emergency. What is that I see? Cried Fritz suddenly. Look, there in the distance. There are 3 horsemen galloping towards us. They must be Arabs of the desert. Arabs, said Ernest. Bedouins, you mean. Bedouins are part of a great family of Arabs, I explained, so Fritz is right. There they are, all walking, taking their adventure. I didn't realize that the island had a desert part to it. Take my spyglass, Ernest, and tell us what you see. Oh, I see wagons loaded with hay, he said, but they are so far away I can't tell much about them. Let me see, cried Jack, grabbing the glass. Oh, I see cavaliers carrying lances with a banner on each point. Now I'm going to take a look, I said. I want to see for myself. I put the glass to my eye and then chuckled. Well, your Arabs, your cavaliers, your hay carts are not those things at all. You have all merely seen a mirage. A mirage, Jack cried. What is a mirage? A mirage is an image caused by the reflection of light in such a way that something far away seems to be near and often looks like something else. What you really see are 3 ostriches traveling together. Quick, let's hide and take them by surprise. What are they going to do with 3 ostriches? There they are all looking. Mirages happen in the desert because of the heat waves. They can kind of blur things and make it appear otherwise. We all crouched down behind some plants that grew on the rock and waited until the ostriches stopped right before us. When they became aware of our presence, they hesitated for a minute. Then the dogs, which we could not keep quiet, sprang out at them, and away flew the timid birds. Send your eagle after them, Fritz, I commanded. Fritz removed the hood from the eagle's head and threw the bird up in the air. The eagle quickly lit upon the head of the male ostrich, which we recognized by its beautiful white tail feathers. Oh, no. Attacking its eyes, the eagle brought the ostrich to the ground with a thud. As we rushed up, we saw that the big bird was dead. What a pity, Fritz said. He would have looked so grand strutting among our animals. Hurry over here, cried Jack. I found an ostrich nest with 30 eggs in it. Let's take them home and hatch them. Well, maybe they can salvage things. I can't believe the eagle poked his eyes out. Bad things just happen. People have quite the adventures. Impossible, said Fritz. Why, each egg weighs 3 pounds. There's no way we could carry them across the desert. Then we shall have to return another time, said Jack. For now, each of us can take 1 egg. That's the solution. As we trooped home, we saw herds of buffalo, monkeys, and antelope in the distance. Finally, we came to an oasis with green grass and clear, cold water. We will call this lovely spot Green Valley, I said. As we rested and refreshed ourselves, we suddenly heard two terrible howls and a cry of distress from Ernest, who had wandered ahead. A moment later he appeared, running toward us at full speed, his face deadly white. "Bears!" he screamed. "Bears! They are following me!" And the poor boy fell in my arms, more dead than alive. There they are walking with their eggs. Oop, that's the end. We don't have to find out about the bears tomorrow.